Excellent. So we're going to have a look at dreams and symbols. So week 2, look at what we're going to cover in this lesson, are very brief and very sort of, I was thinking about it this morning. I might actually, as we go along with these little lessons, I'm going to go back and create the how-tos, not only just like a PDF, but a how-to as well, like a little video explainer. We're going to look at how to actively instigate a lucid dream, or to make it happen in an aware way. Different methods and tools that you can use. We're going to look at dreaming with intent, dream journaling again, sacred geometry, and signs. I've also tacked fractals on the end of that as well, so this is nice. So this is the heal portion of week 2, which is all about healing and self-healing. Now we're going to do looking at lucid dreaming. So lucid dreaming is becoming aware that you are dreaming while you're asleep. As we talked about last week, you consciously participate in the dream itself. So once you learn how to do it, it does become a little bit seductive or irresistible, because it's like a lot of fun. It's like meditating, but because you can start directing it. The type, you can have a bit of fun with it, I guess, and really just work problems out, or ask questions and so forth. So it takes a bit of practice though to get to that point where you can actively participate. Now, to dream consciously requires a few exercises to strengthen awareness of the awareness of the dream versus the waking state, and over time with practice, you might be able to lucid dream and use the dream state to heal, release trauma, and vision your future. So let's look at how. Okay. So let's just quickly revisit the REM, or the stages of sleep and dreams. Again, the non-REM sleep are those 4 stages that starts from waking to almost like the meditative state, where we sometimes even have drifted off, where we can't even recall our meditation. We are still not in REM sleep. We are in that really deep delta state, and which we can dream. We can, because we meditate, we can dream. We can still have those same experiences. They are not as intense a dream state as the REM sleep, because while we're in REM sleep, it's like a death state, if you like, because the body is paralyzed, and the only difference is that the lungs, that like the breathing is still working, lungs are working, brain is working, and the eyes are going. So, but otherwise everything else is basically like paralyzed and doesn't move. Now, exercises to induce lucid dreams. So we're going to look at 4 different methods. You can use them separately, or I recommend that you combine them. They are a little bit, I won't say intense, but they require some concessions to be made to your waking life, because if we're talking about interrupted sleep here. However, if you're serious about inducing lucid dreaming and practicing with it, I still want to say it's not something that you have to do every day, by the way. But these are just exercises that when you've got time, that you don't have a big day the next day, that you can try these things out, because it requires waking up in the middle of the night, interrupted sleep. Okay, so it's exercise number 1 is not too bad. It is called reality testing. Reality testing it sounds like counterintuitive, like it's a bit weird, but pretty much what you do is you set yourself reminders, or like if you can do it just intuitively or instinctively, is that you stop yourself at random times in the day and ask yourself in a very conscious way, am I awake or am I asleep? Now, you know that you do it in your waking hours, you know that you're awake, but you actually check in properly and tell yourself and check in to say, am I awake? Consciously feel like, well, I'm awake, this is what it feels like to be awake, and then carry on. you do this regularly, randomly through the day. There's no real direction on how many times you do it. But if you wanted to practice this, I would, well, in my mind, I would be setting my timer, like on my phone, to remind me, little things to stop and say, oh, am I awake? And making sure that you're not driving the car or something when you stop, because it requires stop and just tune into the self. The reason that this has been tested in a lab, so like they've done this in sleep testing. I'll send a link to the website that I found this information from, or that they've done this testing, is that the asking yourself that you're awake creates a pattern of questioning that carries over to the sleep state. So you are creating a habit that says, because you're asking yourself, well, am I awake? It is inferred that when you're in the dream state, if something catches your attention while you're in your REM sleep and you have a chance to make it that you're actually lucid for a moment, you will remember that you can ask yourself, am I awake, within the dream, and you can tell yourself, well, no, I'm actually dreaming. It creates a habit or a pattern of behavior that carries over to the dream state, but you start to build that pattern or habit in the awake state. That's probably the easiest of them all, although it's a bit weird, but like I said, if you're in the middle of the supermarket and your alarm goes off and you start saying to yourself, am I awake? But it is a very non-invasive, or not too invasive, gentle way of creating a habit to begin that lucid dreaming with intent process. Next, we're going to have a look at is the mnemonic induction of lucid dreams. Excuse me. I'm going to open up my book. Now, the mnemonic exercise to induce lucid dreams is where you don't have to wake yourself up. But if you do wake up in the night, because oftentimes we wake up, well, sometimes, unless we have a really good night's sleep, 2 or 3 times a night, is to remember not to wake yourself up fully, but to say to yourself, am I dreaming or am I awake? And next time I go to sleep, I'll remember that I'm dreaming. So you don't have to, you can recognize that you're awake, but you'll just say to yourself, oh, when I go back to sleep now, I'm going to remember that I'm dreaming. And this is, again, we are setting up a practice or a habit that the mind carries over into the dream state, from the waking state into the dream state, because there are opportunities within the dream state for the lucid dreaming to like the self-aware part of us to say, oh, I can go into my lucid dreaming now. I'm actually in a dream, and I want to participate. We are setting ourselves up in our waking time with habits and practices that will then carry over. We don't have to think about it. It just happens automatically because we are creating that habit. It does, it says you're training your mind to consciously remember that you're dreaming when you do return to the dream state. I have actually done this. I can remember, like, early on when I didn't even know this was a thing, by the way, but I'd have some particularly interesting dreams, or really dreams that I loved. I woke up and said, oh man, and I was like, I want to go back into that dream, and I actually go back into the dream because I consciously asked myself to go back into it. I only remember that. I can't tell you what the actual dream was, but I do remember having those thoughts and going back into the dream. So obviously it made an impression on me that I was able to do that. I haven't actually practiced that for a long time. I'm not having huge dreams like I used to. The downside of this, of course, is interrupted sleep, because you do have to remind yourself that you're awake, and to remind yourself, oh, I've got to ask myself the question. But again, once you start getting into the routine of it, it doesn't become such a big deal. And once it becomes a habit, it's not something that will be too interruptive or disruptive of your sleep. Oh, Rose calls it she's given it, she's cited a source called Charlie Morley, who has done this dream techniques. Rose, I'll share you the book share with you the book. It's called Inside Your Dreams by Rose and Sarah, and she's used a source called Charlie Morley, and he's called the mind, MIND. He's called it MILD, or mnemonic induction of lucid dreams. It should be MILD. Sorry, I've got to change that. Which is memorize the dream, set the intention, visualize the lucidity of the dream, and drop off to sleep or repeat. So that requires a little bit more than what we're talking about here, which has come from the sleep.org or sleepfoundation.org. So this is very simple. Next time I'm asleep, I'll remember I'm dreaming. I'll just wake up and go, okay, I'm going to go back into my thing. Whereas this other method that Rose talks about requires a little bit of extra wake time to say, okay, well, I've just had this dream, which is basically what I practice. I just mentioned. I said, oh, I'll wake up from a dream. I'm going to now consciously ask myself to go back into that dream. So you might not lucid dream when you go back into it. However, you are setting yourself up to condition yourself to actually lucid dream down the track a little bit. You might straight away, but don't lose heart if it doesn't happen. And as I said, only if you're prepared for uninterrupted sleep. The next method we're going to have a look at is awake and back to bed. This is a little bit more disruptive in that you deliberately go to sleep and wake yourself up about 5 hours between 4, they say 4 to 6, but 5 hours after you've gone to bed. You deliberately wake yourself up and get up, like have a glass of water, go to the bathroom, stay awake for at least 30 minutes. And in that time, you use that same MILD, not mind, MILD method. Next time I'm asleep, I'll remember I'm dreaming. But because you have actually deliberately interrupted your sleep, you would more than likely be in a REM state. And because the body feels like it's missing out on its REM sleep, once you go back to sleep, it will automatically go back into that REM state. So that you are deliberately, so once you, after 30 minutes, you put yourself back into relaxing and going back into sleep. It says it takes between 30 minutes to 120 minutes, which is like if you want to be awake for 2 hours, but I mean, I'm sure that's extreme. But you are deliberately waking yourself up for 30 minutes to say, I'm ready to do this. You have woken yourself up out of the REM sleep. The body wants to go straight back into REM. So you are deliberately sort of tricking it a little bit to put you back into REM sleep while you are saying to yourself consciously, I'm going to remember my dream, and off you go. Again, be prepared for interrupted sleep. This is not something that you would do every day, because I think being cranky the next day from interrupted sleep is worse than practicing lucid dreaming or any benefits that you would get from it. However, this would be something that maybe you could try once or twice, maybe once on a weekend, if you've got time to do that. I can just, every time I say this, I can hear, I'm imagining that Kathleen's laughing at me with little babies, but it is something, again, you can use it together with the MILD method, the mnemonic induction of lucid dreaming with the wake up, go back to bed method, and it'll start to produce that conscious lucid dreaming. That's the theory. That's the study that's been done. When you do that in conjunction with a reality check-in, then you are really setting yourself up to. If none of that works, then you're not meant to lucid dream, because all of those things are meant to set up that habit or that awareness, so that you don't have to think about it. It carries over into your sleep time. So the fourth method we're going to look at is the favorite, dream journaling. So dream journaling, when we are constantly and every day, I would do this as an everyday thing, write down something that you remember from your dreams, even in the middle of the night, you just quickly jot down a few things. As we talked about last week, within the first 10 minutes of waking up in the night, the dream starts to disappear. Regularly dream journaling will also, again, set up that habit of behavior that says, oh, I'm remembering my dreams. And eventually we will start to think, oh, I'm actually dreaming, because we're making it part of our, like a front of mind technique. We're consciously saying, hey, I'm really interested in my dreams, and the mind will override and stop gatekeeping and let you remember the dreams and participate them in a conscious way. So any questions about those techniques? Cool. All right. Well, sorry.
No, I don't have any, but I like the first one where you can just check in on yourself, train your
Yeah.
there all day.
Yeah, I think that one would probably be like, for me, I don't like the thought of interrupted sleep. And these other methods, as I said, they've been tested in a lab. They've been tested, like, not only just this Sleep Foundation, but there are other like scientific journals, journals from universities and so forth, that have actually done this type of lucid dreaming testing. So it's an actual sort of method that has been tested. However, the reality check is also part of that testing, by the way. But to me, that is the least invasive and the most like, if you're wanting to be serious about it without actually having interrupted sleep, it may take a little bit longer. However, the reality check, I think, would be the most effective if you're getting into it, and maybe double it up with the dream journaling, because you're just, again, you're creating a pattern in the mind. Okay, so let's keep going. So we're going to have a look at how you can dream with intent. Now, this sort of mixes in with signs as well, or symbols, because dreams are pretty much a lot of symbology in the dreams, and that's why they often don't make much sense. Because again, we're bypassing the mind, the logical self, and into that tapping into the creative space, or the emotional space. And so often what doesn't make sense to the mind has some sort of significance or relevance to the soul. And as I said, when we do dream therapy next week, you'll see how we can actually open that up and bring it to the forefront. Dreaming with intent, I've got 3 different ways that you can do that. You can look for signs. So I'm talking about looking for signs in your waking life, or in your meditation, or if you're having hypnosis or anything, not so much in the REM or the lucid. If you're lucid dreaming, of course, you're aware of it, but this is in any aware state. Look for signs. I'm talking about numbers. I'm talking about something significant, like butterflies or feathers or flowers, or something that actually means something to you, because that will trigger, it disrupts a train of thought, or it disrupts some sort of issue that may be even playing out in the back of your mind, or disrupts your day in a good way, in a healthy way. It says, oh, that's actually catching my attention. So I love signs for not so much working out what the sign means. If you know what it means, great, because you're getting the message straight away. But if not, I always say to people when they ask me about particular signs that they're getting, is that it makes us stop and it makes us check in. In other words, it makes us check in with the meditation that we like, the connection of the body and the intuition, which is what the chakra balance is all about that we did today. It makes us check in with our body, check in with our intuition. Am I feeling weird? What does this mean? As in, am I getting any warning signals in my body? So what we're doing, the signs, to me, are always a way of saying, hey, you're out of your space, you're out of your body, get back in there and connect to your intuition. It doesn't have to mean anything else other than a reminder, a bit like the reality check. It's a reality check. You're checking back in and saying, oh, yeah, here's my intuition. Yes, I'm back connected with you. Thank you very much for the reminder. The signs, as I said to the guys last night as well, the people last night, is that the PDF I'm going to make up. I just have not had a whole day to in the last month or so to actually sit down and do up the PDFs properly. My time has also been disrupted. So, but tomorrow and the next day, I've got 2 full days to myself, where we're just having a break, doing our washing and everything. So I'll make up all the PDFs that we've been talking about. But if you want to consciously use signs as a method of inducing messages through the dream state, or through the that out of body state, or that dreaming state, creating your own symbol journal or sign dictionary, I should say, which has relevance for you, takes away a lot of that insecurity or uncertainty around, or what does that sign mean? Because if you notice something and you know that sign means a particular thing, you can go, thank you, and continue on with your day. You do not have to pull it apart and look for any sort of anxiety or warning or interruption, whatever that happens a lot of the times. Of course, if it doesn't make any sense to you, then of course ask. And if it really, really bothers you, that's usually the intuition saying pick up a book and have a look at a dream dictionary, because more often than not, that'll start the process of understanding. Another way that you can dream with intent is to ask for help. So we're looking at before you go to sleep. If you've got a problem, you can write it down and say, I need help with this, or you can just put it out to the universe. And as you do so, you acknowledge that you're if you've got something that needs to be worked out. This happens for me unconsciously now. I don't even actually consciously do it. I keep forgetting to consciously ask, but in the morning, I'll wake up and all of a sudden that within the first half hour, we talked about this last week, within the first half hour, that information is dropped in, like bing, oh, that's right, I was worrying about that yesterday. So by going to sleep, I'm actually consciously or unconsciously, subconsciously releasing and surrendering that to the highest good, and I'm getting the answers that I need. Sometimes it doesn't happen within this, I won't say 100% happens, but generally, let's say 99% it happens within the first 30 minutes of me waking up, but otherwise it'll pop in during the day sometime. Because I didn't even know that I'd asked the question, because all of a sudden an answer will pop in and I go, oh my God, I was worried about that yesterday. So I'm unconsciously, but you can consciously ask for help by just saying, this is on my mind, you can write it down, you can whisper it into something, whatever it is that, however feels right for you. And the third way of dreaming with intent is share your dream, much as we're doing in this module of dreams and symbols in this session or section of the quadrant. We are sharing our experiences, and with that, you might not get an answer from somebody else, like from me or somebody else, but you might actually start to think, oh, that's what that means. Because once you start getting it out, it's out of the head, and you stop gatekeeping the answers or creativity because the head just wants to pull everything apart. Once you share it, it's out. It is released from the body. It's like out with the breath, and whatever is coming up behind it, if you're meant to have an answer, sharing that sometimes, and like that happens with all of our problems, right? It doesn't have to be about your dream, but I'm definitely sharing your dream, and that'll be part of our dream therapy next week, is sharing our dreams. That's another way of dreaming with intent. As in, you have a dream, share your dream, and just see if that makes a difference about your understanding, or at least even letting go of any concerns or worries that you have about it. So let's have a look at the next bit, which are, now we're getting into sort of symbols and signs. So I thought that this would be an interesting subject to cover. It's called the Platonic solids. Have either of you heard of the Platonic solids?
No, Vicky.
The Platonic solids are, again, it's a mathematic thing that was worked out by Plato. All of those thousands of years ago. And these particular shapes are unique in that when they are formed, they have exact surfaces, everything. So this, the second one here is 8-sided. If you can see my pointer. So the first one is a cube, as you can see, each surface. This one's 8-sided, so on the other side is another pointed bit. Each line and each surface is exactly the same as the other. This is an 8-sided one. This is like a pyramid, and this is the dodecahedron, which I think is about 20-sided, like a Dungeons and Dragons dice. These symbols are unique in that they are uniquely found in nature, and I don't think that, like, I think a 7-sided or a 6-sided, excuse me, you can get those shapes, but these ones are particular to nature, and they in themselves have been, I suppose, appropriated by the spiritualist, I suppose, the alternative movement, whatever you want to call it, as having attributing a particular type of power to it. Now, I'm saying this from an arm's length point of view because I have not actually experimented with these, but I wanted to talk about them because I have actually studied a little bit of it with a friend of mine, my beautiful friend Pam, who has passed, and I was going to take a little bit further. However, I don't have any experience. I just have a little bit of brushstroke knowledge of them, but I wanted to introduce them because you can get these shapes and actually use them in a way that as a like symbolically, or you can charge them up with particular intent. And we're going to have a look at what each shape is attracted to, like is attributed to in a minute. But these shapes, they're actually a 3D shape. You can use them. They come sometimes. You'll often see them as wooden or crystal, and oftentimes they'll be accompanied by a sphere. Plato did not introduce a sphere. That's been added on. You can buy them as a set. However, you can make them up from paper if you want to. It doesn't matter. It's what matters is that they represent these particular mathematical equations, if you like, or properties. So I'm not going to go too much into it. I just wanted to we're going to look at the metaphysical side of everything rather than get into the mathematics, because that mathematics bores me. I can't get my head around it. But the cube, we're just going to go through the 5 of them. The cube is connected to earth energy and the base chakra. So the cube was considered to be earth because of its solidness, its force, like the 4, the number 4, it's most stable of all of the shapes, and it attracts or conducts earth energy, and so it from that it is connected to the base chakra because earth energy is base chakra energy. So to activate, and I'll say this for once, and this applies to all of the different shapes, you can activate each of these shapes, whether you've got a template off the internet and built a paper one, or whether you've got a fancy crystal one, or however you want to build it. You can build it out of Play-Doh if you want to. You can activate the shape. It's the shape itself that has the power. You can program or infuse the shape with the many methods that we have discussed previously, much like vibrations, colors, water, like color infused water, vibration infused water. However you want to do it, you can infuse it with intent. And so once you've done that, that shape is now infused with that power, and you can use it for whatever purpose that you wish. It's not like a crystal, unless it's made of crystal where you program it. It's not like a crystal where you have to program it and deprogram it and reprogram it. You are just powering up the natural properties that are within the actual shape itself. So, like, for example, if you wanted to energize your food, you could find a perfect cube. You could energize it using the methods that we talked about, or your own method, and you can put it in your fridge or put it in your pantry. And just know that the cube, because that's your intention, that it is actually adding earth energy or base chakra energy or grounding energy to the shape. It's actually emanating now from that shape. And however often you recharge it is up to you. You're connected to that actual shape itself. So just quickly go through the rest of them. So the next one is the icosahedron, which is a water shape, the sacral chakra. Plato actually attributed the elements, so it's not something that was added later. I think the sacral chakra was added later as a thing because of the water. It was considered water because of the fluidity of the number of actually, this should actually have just bear with me. I'll have to fix that up. I'm pretty sure. Oops. This should have 6 sides, not, I put the wrong shape in there and I apologize. This one should have the 8 sides, where it's more fluid when it sits in your hand and has a more fluid feel. I'll fix that shape up and redo that when I do that, when I edit the video. The next one we're going to have a look at is the tetrahedron, which is the fire. It's the pyramid, the three-sided pyramid, and it's called fire because the points when they touch the hand, they bite or they hurt, and again attributed to the solar plexus. And of course, fire, solar plexus, activity, and the mind. And we're looking at now the octahedron, air, heart chakra. So each of those sides, terrible, isn't it? So this is actually the 8-sided. I'll have to go back and when I write my PDF, I'll actually go do a PDF of this with more information on it. As I said, I do apologize, but I have the names right. And when you find the names and find the shapes, you can work that out for yourself. But the octahedron is associated with air and the heart chakra, and it is much like the way that it sits and flows. Again, it's how it feels. Is why Plato attributed air, the element of air, to it. We've attributed the heart. Of course, it works with compassion. It works with love and unconditional love, as the heart chakra does. And the next one, the last one, is the dodecahedron. Now, Plato didn't, because he discovered the 5, he attributed the 4 elements to the 4, and according to Wikipedia and the records kept at the time, when he was asked about what the dodecahedron, he didn't actually attribute it with an element. However, he just sort of said, "Oh, it's everything," or "It's the universe," or something similar to that. So, of course, that's been now attributed to spirit or the universe. So the dodecahedron, when you energize it, I look at it as the oneness of the 7th layer of the aura, or the crown chakra, as in it is the unknown part, the part of us that is beyond our knowing, that we pass into not when we leave this earth, but when we actually go beyond leaving the earth, not when we're in spirit as ready to be reincarnated, but beyond that, where even in our human space, we cannot know what is beyond that veil. However, when we do still visit it we have visited here. This is what the conscious mystic in our mystic space is all about. We just know that we've been there. And when we come back, we feel at peace with the world, even if our world is falling apart, we know we have visited that space, because we come back feeling at peace, that we know without knowing why, that everything's going to be fine. And so you could get yourself a dodecahedron and energize that and place that anywhere around you, or meditate on it, or however you want to use it to activate and energize that connection with the universe. All right, I just feel like I have to do a bit more research now myself on it. I just wanted to introduce those that part of sacred geometry, because I find those symbols very powerful, and because I didn't get a chance to practice it, I didn't want to give it too much time or space, because I really want to dive into it one day and really study sacred geometry in a very real way. But that's my little brushstroke knowledge of it. And I'll leave that up to you to do a bit more research. Now we're going to get into 2D, sacred geometry, 2D rather than 3D. So we're going to start with, I've just chosen 5 symbols. There are so many, but we're going to just talk about ones that I think are workable and relevant. The Vesica Piscis, love it. Just ignore the little circle, and we're just looking at a Venn diagram, basically 2 circles making a Venn diagram. Ignore the circle in the middle. That was just added by the artist of the graphic that I used for this purpose. The Vesica Piscis is actually like the beginning of the flower of life, or that symbol of the flower of life, which is basically the blueprint of all of the patterns on Earth, or one of the blueprints, I should say, of all the patterns on Earth. You'll see it's very much attributed to the flower of life. Of course, very much works in the number 5, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. But the Vesica Piscis, you will see that what is actually most is that the one side is earth and one side is spirit, and when they're connected, what is in the middle is the connection between spirit and, like, our waking life and our dream life, or our spirit life. or soul life. And in the middle is representative of the yoni, or the birthing canal. And you can use this symbol if you would like to birth an idea. Oftentimes, we feel like we're ready to bring something forward. We don't really know what that is. We don't know what it's going to look like, but we can feel that it's there. You can use this symbol to help bring it through, especially if it's very stuck. It's a great symbol to use for gridding, and especially you could use crystals around the outside. And I've seen grids where you can put different colored or different types of crystals around the middle part where the two circles join to create that birthing canal. And it's very much that, it's almost like it also represents almost like the two cells of the beginning of life, where two cells meet and begin to start reproducing. You can attribute it to that. So the next one we're going to have a look at is the flower of life. I've bypassed the seed of life, which of course is the next stage, but I wanted to talk about the flower of life. Again, we're looking at the 5, the symbol of 5, the repeating pattern here. The flower of life has been used for lots of things, for in jewelry, in you can add the flower of life to your, I've seen them on coasters to put your water on top of. I've seen them added as a thing that you can put inside your water. You can hang it up anywhere. It is everywhere. The flower of life represents the ever-expanding pattern of life, the repeating pattern of life. You can see the pattern is repeated. But it starts with that Pisces Basilica. Basilica Pisces. The last one we had the 2, and expands to create this perfect pattern. This perfect pattern will continue. But you can see here, you can take this pattern and create the pattern of the universe, how it grows into a perfect shape. And you can use that too. You don't even have to do anything with it. It comes with its own energy. You take the flower of life energy and you add it to all of your whatever part of life you want to add it to. And that, again, I look at it as a regenerating pattern, a regenerating energy, if you like, because it's almost like the blueprint. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one. I find this one really interesting. I didn't know about this one until I started reading about for these particular symbols. And I wasn't going to include it, but I thought I really like it, the Taurus. I like it because it explains a lot of what goes on with life. The Taurus, it represents a mathematical equation, I suppose, if you like, or an occurrence where something can only extend a certain way until it has to go back in, much like our universe expands and then it contracts into itself and becomes a black hole, to expand again and become a black hole. This is what the Taurus is. It has a limit before it must. So as it expands, it must go back inside of itself. I didn't read this. This is just me falling into the imagery of it and my understanding of it. And we did, when we meditated last night, this actually became a part of the meditation. So I'm going to add this to my channeling of what this means. When we have a new experience, we extend the Taurus energy that's within our aura past our comfort zone, if you like. So once we extend the Taurus part of our energy past our comfort zone and touch the outside of it, we are forever changed. However, we're not abandoned out there. We can come back to our comfort zone. But once we know it, we have created a new limit of our experience. So that, to me, the Taurus is like that experimentation where we expand, take it past the limit, and then come back in again so that we can process what we had. And because once we process it, and we've created that extra boundary. The next time we go out, we take the Taurus out to another boundary. And this to me is life, in that, like our life on earth, that we can take comfort in the Taurus, in knowing that we're not going to be left out into that wilderness of new experience. We can come back to our comfort zone to process it. That to me feels very comforting and very nurturing. And you can use that, the Taurus energy, or visualize the Taurus energy when you are feeling particularly challenged about something and want to go back to a comfort zone. There's nothing wrong with a comfort zone, but be mindful, you can't live in a comfort zone. You're going to get kicked out. Now, the Metatron cube. I do not know a lot about the Metatron cube, but when I look at it, it has 13 little circles in there. From my understanding of it, it has every shape in the universe included in the Metatron cube. Every shape that's conceivable is part of this cube. So, having said that, when I look at the Metatron cube, to me, it is the mind. It is the web of the mind, all the thoughts, all the little brain things that go on. So it is everything, every conceivable pathway, every conceivable thought, every conceivable solution is all contained in this one thing. Can you imagine if you were trying to tap into that? Your mind would just go. So rather than be that sort of intensity, you can use the Metatron cube to unravel all those spider webby thoughts. You can use that to sit within the center of the Metatron cube and be at peace. And from that, you can then send out in a controlled way the thoughts, as you can see in these 6 lines that go out, and then allow the Metatron cube to take care of it. Basically, you are surrendering it to the power of the cube, which has every shape included in it. And the next one we're going to have a look at is I think it's called the Fibonacci sequence. Has anyone ever seen this? I've seen this a lot. Yeah, I've seen this a lot myself. Yeah, but I've never really got into it. But again, it is the perfect shape. Now, this is the perfect shape that is found in nature. Can I say that nowhere in nature is this perfect shape found? However, there is a mathematical sequence that creates the perfect shapes that we see in nature, even though in nature they don't actually always grow perfectly. But this is how you work out the Fibonacci sequence. It goes from 0 + 1 is 1, 1 + 1 is 2, 2 + 1 is 3, 3 + 2 is 5, and so on and so forth, to infinity. So in other words, you take the grid and you go 21 by 21, and then you create the perfect arc that fits inside that grid. And so you start from 0 and create that perfect, and it will continue for infinity. So the Fibonacci sequence, rather than using the actual equation or looking at and trying to make things perfect, I like it for finding things in nature. And I didn't realize that it had a name, but last year I was looking over a bridge where somewhere with these beautiful ferns, and I was looking how the ferns were growing. And I had to stop looking because I was falling into a meditative state. I would have happily just fallen into the cycle or the circle of it. So in nature, this is where you'll find this Fibonacci sequence in cones, in sunflowers. This is a classic, the Nautilus shell. So this Nautilus shell is actually probably quite perfect, and I think it's been generated by a computer rather than an actual shell itself. But when you actually go into nature, there is always the Fibonacci sequence is not perfect, but it is there, and you can use the pattern to almost like a mandala to lose yourself into that spiral, and it disrupts a thought pattern. I like a lot of these things for disrupting. If we're sort of in a thought process, or our mind is gatekeeping our creativity outside of ourselves, and we want to or we're in an anxiety state and we want to disrupt a moment, we can use these symbols or these signs or these tools to disrupt, so that it takes us back to ourselves, back to our creative self, and think, hang on, I'm just running off I'm running off in a really weird direction. Let's come back to where I can actually access and source the answer that I'm looking for, even if it's not immediate. And these processes, or these tools, or these 2D, 3D, and in nature patterns will actually help us achieve that state, or we can use them to achieve that state in a very real way. So, any questions about the geometry that we've just discussed?
No.
No. There's a kitty. All right. Who's done fractals? Has anyone ever or heard of fractals before?
I've seen the shapes, but
Yeah, not familiar.
Mm-mm.
So we're going to we're taking things like the Fibonacci sequence and other any sort of shape at all, but mostly you'll see it that Fibonacci sort of spiral. And the fractals have actually, I think they've only really turned up, or if they haven't, again, I haven't deep dived into it, but I only know it from computer generated images and movies. And they'll take that forever infinity spiral and turn it into a chaotic pattern. And then when you start watching that chaotic pattern, and again, it alters the mind, it takes the mind away from the space that it's in, and it again prevents it from blocking any creativity. It gives the mind something to think about. It allows you to sink into it, and the patterns and the movement create an altered state of being, or altered state of feeling and thinking. I'm going to play a little video. That's why I've made a little movie today. There's the black and white fractals. Here's a bit better. I don't know if you can see quite well. You'll probably have to, there's lots and lots of fractals added with music on YouTube if you ever want to get into it. I might find some pretty ones and add them to the website. But you can see in the static photo that you can see how that's starting to form. Now I've made a little video of some fractals. I've got 4 different types of fractals I'm going to play. It takes about 2 minutes. So it doesn't have any music or anything to it, but just watch it and just tune into how you're feeling or how your mind is going when you watch it. So let's go. So what did you think about that?
I've seen them before when I did mushrooms.
I would imagine it would be really trippy. Yeah.
But they're beautiful. For some reason, like when it's forming and the shape hasn't, you don't know where it's going exactly. That's like kind of uncomfortable for a little bit.
I know. Yes.
Yeah. And then when it forms the shape, you're like, oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Some satisfaction to it.
As Kathleen, any thoughts at all? Oh, well, I had the same thought that look, I took the little videos because I have an app on my phone called Infinity, and I'll send a link to that. And those little videos are part of a sequence. Like you just watch it for a certain amount of time. It's got instructions on it. And I haven't actually used it for a couple of years actually. Doing this, I thought, I'll get that out and take a video of it and get back into it. It comes with a bit of music. So when you get them on YouTube, oftentimes there'll be music with it as well. There's actually one that's binaural beats, 432 hertz, and the fractals that all go together. But I had that looking at that again every time I'm doing this these modules in this course with you guys. I also have new understandings, new realizations, and looking at it this time as I'm watching it, I had that same thought, Liz, is that I was watching how I was reacting to it again. I was watching what was going on with my brain, and it's aesthetically pleasing because the colors are quite pretty. The infinity of it, I found probably a little bit frustrating because it never resolves itself. It will shift and change. And so, and then when it does, as you said, when it does finally get to a certain point where it's a bit, it's a regular sort of a pattern, you can start to relax, and all of a sudden it'll change again, and it builds up that frustration. So because of the chaos of it, I think it really helps. So it helps a lot with um, getting frustration to the surface, not making you frustrated on purpose, but if there's anything there that needs to be released, it'll be sitting on the surface, and that fractal sort of patterning will bring it up to the surface, like anything does it. If we're frustrated about something, anything will tick us off. So you can use that to acknowledge the frustration without having to pull it apart. And then when it does resolve itself, you can say, oh, and you can say, and then, oh, pretty colors. So also you can enjoy the certainty, you can enjoy the chaos, and you can enjoy the change. So yeah, again, it's like an alive mandala, if you like, without any sort of in a very chaotic way. So these are some of the resources that I've used. So again, I'm going to put some links on the website when I build the page for the heal section of things. That's pretty much the end of today. Any questions at all about what we've done before we wind up?
No, I really like sacred geometry though. That's
I know you. Isn't it
easy.
interesting? Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off then. You love it?
Yeah, I'm just finished with that. Yeah, I love it.
I'm actually going to, when I was getting those, especially the platonic solids, finding information. I've been trying all week to get something that makes sense to me. I haven't found it yet. So that's why it was the sort of information I had was very sort of, I suppose, sketchy at best. I wanted to add them to the healing sequence because they are quite powerful symbols. What that tells me personally is that I need to, for me personally, to speak with authority, I've studied them in depth, and I can't do that at the moment. Probably next year I might try and dip my toe into that water. There's a place in San Francisco that has a website called the Vesica Institute, and they teach sacred geometry online as well. But you can also go there. I think they have things all over the world where you can go and study them. They're the sacred geometry. But yeah, I'll find as much as I can, a bit more of a deep dive if I can, even if I have to find some or buy some books and read about them. If it's not straight away, I'll do as much as I can, because I think that they are, when used with intent and look with a little bit of understanding, that can be quite powerful. All right, so to wind up, so today, this is like our little homework. Create yourself. Well, this is the same we talked about last week, but create the personal dream journal. Keep that going. What meanings and phrases have some sort of sense to you, so that when you do get caught, you're not going to be sort of backpedaling, trying to work out what that means. Keep a notebook by your bed and a pen to write down your dreams as you dream them, as you wake up. Consider how you feel about those dreams. So start recording how you feel, whether it's frustrated, unsure, happy, relieved, all those sorts of stuff. Do you know what it meant? Did it frustrate you, and so forth? And they'll tacked on the end, practice the lucid dreaming techniques and see how they work for you. You don't have to do that, but it's there for you to try. I think I always balk at the lucid dreaming techniques because it's like you have to wake yourself up, and I can be so tired the next day. All right, so next week we're diving into how to apply dreams and symbols when working with other people. So we're going to do some dream therapy, and we're going to interpret the messages. So I've got a little, so dream therapy is a particular therapy. I'm going to, again, give you a brief overview about what that means, and we'll have a bit of a practice with it. interpreting the messages, we're going to look at very simple signs and symbols, and we're going to do more active work with each other, and deep dive into our intuitive self and our active listening, a little bit of counseling sort of work there, or practice, teaching a little bit of counseling techniques, and how to interpret messages and how to interpret the signs for yourself and also for other people. So basically we're tapping into other people and that psychic awareness. Otherwise, that's it. This should be up tonight or tomorrow, and I'll get cracking on those PDFs. But otherwise, unless you have any other questions or anything that you'd like to know or ask about, or even if you don't have it now, you can ask me during the week anytime, of course, reach out. But otherwise, that's it for this week. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Vicki. I enjoyed it.
No worries. Thank you.
Bye, Kathleen.
Bye, Kathleen.